Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, why a sexual harassment act? And in the second watch, the sexual harassment act in practice. For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on the new Sexual Harassment Act? Please share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and the YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
Good morning. Today's I quote is an island quote, and it says, "You never see smoke without fire." And this means sometimes actions that appear to be trivial are actually indications of some deep-rooted resentment or of trouble or romance brewing. So you never see smoke without fire.
Hi, good morning, Joka.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well, and you, my brother?
I'm doing well.
Yes, never see smoke without fire, but you can see fire without smoke, eh?
I mean, that is very true.
Okay, let's leave it alone. The first watch will be back after this break.
This summer, light up your home with Digicel Plus and win. Switch to Digicel Plus. Activate or upgrade to a home fiber or LTE home plan, or pay your bill in full and on time. Now until July 21st. Visit DigicelJamaica.com for more info. Digicel Plus, better connected. Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting and Launches Act.
Ooh la la! I see what I want at Phosphate Store-wide Summer Super Sale. Come get your wires, breakers, LED downlights, solar lamps, LED bulbs, standing fans, and so much more. Shop Kingston, Wonderful, and Want to Give A. Come get your smart locks, smart bulbs, video doorbells, and video cameras. You can't afford to miss it. Come shop. Come save at Phosphate Super Sale, July 3 to August 31. See you there at Phosphate. Open Sundays.
You hear that? What about that? You might think it's just nature you're listening to, when in fact, you're in the office of our farmers, fisher folk, and their families. And the reason they're a little happier working is because they know they are covered for health, dental, optical, critical illness, life insurance, accidental death or dismemberment with Guardian Life's Fisheries and Agriculture Multi-Advantage Plan. Call 888 for Life to find out more about Guardian Life's Farmer Plan today. Guardian Life. Live secure. Live easy.
Christmas in July is here again, and it's bigger than ever. Join us at the AC Hotel on July 12th and the 13th, starting at 9 a.m. for the Christmas in July Trade Show, hosted by the Minister of Tourism, Honorable Edmund Bartlett. Get ready to be amazed by an incredible exhibition of local-made Christmas gifts and souvenirs. For more information, follow us at TEF Jamaica on all social media platforms. Christmas in July is proudly brought to you by the Tourism Enhancement Fund, a public body of the Ministry of Tourism and their amazing partners. Bye, Jamaica. Build it, Jamaica. See you there.
Win over $1 million in cash and prizes in the Yummy Summer Competition. Purchase any 4 different Yummy pastries. Write your name and number on your receipt. Send in with your Yummy salesman or drop off at the nearest supermarket or Yummy agency. 28 weekly prizes, 4 winners every week, plus grand draw August 28th for a laptop. $60,000, $30,000, plus a Yummy basket and back-to-school vouchers. Grand prize, a family weekend for 4 at the Holiday Inn. It's the Yummy Summer Competition, authorized under Section 58(3) of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act.
Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with Attorney at Law Stokely Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint. On Thursdays, the Morning Watch is brought to you by Educom Cooperative Credit Union, providing value through service, and Bashco, the store that gives you more. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101.
The Antichrist is known as the one who denies the Father and the Son. What is their mission?
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. The bill was signed into law by the Governor General, and the Honorable Olivia Babsy-Grange announced July 3, 2023 as the date when the law would come into effect. So it's finally here. That is the Sexual Harassment Act. In this first watch, we are basically asking, why a Sexual Harassment Act, and at this time in this or in our nation's history? And in so doing, we have online so far Ms. Sharon Robinson, Principal Director of Gender Affairs. Good morning to you, Ms. Robinson.
Good morning. Good morning.
Great. How are you this morning?
I am very blessed and highly favored of God.
Great. Good to have you on with us this early in the morning. We're talking about, of course, the Sexual Harassment Act. And in this, the first watch, we're looking on why. But before we do that, in essence, what really is the Sexual Harassment Act? And how did it come into existence?
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you so much. So the Sexual Harassment Act is that bit of legislation that allows for the long-standing issue of sexual harassment to be addressed in a very meaningful way. So before the Act, we had a national anti-sexual harassment policy, and that national anti-sexual harassment policy was very ambitious to the extent that it established a framework for the government of Jamaica to address the long-standing problem of sexual harassment in the workplace. That also extended to educational institutions, accommodation, and other public and private spaces and institutions. That's the policy itself. The major objective of the policy was to reduce, where possible, the occurrences of sexual harassment and to mitigate the effects of harassment, because we recognize that there were so many persons who were hurting in silence. And some complained, but nothing was done because nothing was in place in terms of a legislation so they could get redressed under other bits of legislation like the Offences Against the Persons Act. But that would take a while and sometimes nothing happened. So we found that we needed to have something that would address the issue head on and allow for persons to recognize that if I am harassed in the workplace, there is a mechanism that will allow me to get redress and will allow the parties who are a part of my space to understand that there's a zero tolerance approach to harassment. We want to find a space that is free from harassment, violence, discrimination, and any form of abuse or victimization, so that person feels safe to come to work, feel happy about coming to work, and can be their most productive self.
The process, Ms. Robinson, that it took, are you able to share with us how developments over the years to this point?
Certainly. Thank you so much for that. So as I mentioned earlier, that started early. As a matter of fact, I joined the Bureau of Women's Affairs, it was at the time in 2006, November 6, 2006. And when I joined, there was a conversation around the sexual harassment legislation. We did not yet have the legislation, but we knew based on recommendation from the CEDAW. The CEDAW, by the way, is that mother of all conventions. It's the short form for the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And that focused definitively to creating mechanisms that would allow for persons to enjoy their freedom of right and personhood. So that was one of the things they recommended. Put in place an anti-sexual harassment policy and follow swiftly with legislation that will allow for persons to be able to come to a space and not worry about being harassed. And if it is that it happens, put something in place for that will recognize that this has happened and how do we treat with it. So we started with just the idea of having this thing. And so we had to do what we call consultative code. We use the consultative code to have different stakeholders talk about it. Who are the persons who would be harassed? Who would be likely to be the harassers? How would they want us to have this legislation or this policy that would shape how we define it and how we decide on what happens, what forms of redress. So we had the consultations, and that allowed persons to be able to speak out, to say, yes, I've been harassed, or I've witnessed it, or I think this is what should be done. Based on all those consultations, we put together a report. We had to have a consultant, and that consultant was engaged to do it and to go around and to have the consultations with different groups. So we had groups coming out and speaking out, and that was across the board: public sector, private sector, civil society, faith-based, all of the groups that would be poised to participate in this conversation. And of course, because it's also going to cover accommodation, we had to ask persons who are in a situation of accommodation, for example, landlord and tenant. And the results were telling. We found so many instances of harassment that were perhaps not known, not discussed, but had happened, and persons were grieving on the inside, hurting, but not able to get the form of redress that they wanted, and sometimes just not able to speak out because, for example, they feared that if they spoke out, it would be a reprisal on their part, or they might lose that promotion or lose that job opportunity or lose that bread and butter, which allows them to take care of themselves and their family. So having had the consultations, we now put together what we call a concept paper. And that concept paper is because that's how the policy process works. To say, we have now done the discussion and we have something out of the discussion coming from our consultant that says, this is the gravity of the problem and these are the recommendations that are coming out of all of those consultations and the different sectors that we have approached and the sectors that we've spoken to. Once we did that concept paper, it meant that we would put that forward to the minister who was responsible, so that the minister would know these are the issues that we have garnered in terms of our consultations, what have come up, what has risen to the top. These are the main findings, and this is what we would want to bring forward. That was taken to the minister. The minister looked at it, gave us feedback to say, yes, this is something that makes good sense, and anything that's going to be making good governance happen and protecting our persons under the fact that we are a signatory to these conventions, treaties, and agreements, let's go forward. So having done that, the thing was to sensitize now persons on it. To let persons know that this is coming. There's a legislation that is coming. But first of all, we're going to do it in the policy format first. So we did that in consultation with the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, the Ministry of Education and Youth, all of the ministries that would be poised to. Because for the educational piece, we would need to be having a conversation with the Ministry of Education. For the workplace piece,
yes, on that note, Ms. Robinson,
yes.
pick up in right there. We are up on a break. Hold that thought, to be right back.
Sure.
Touching lives every day, so many different ways, a part of all you do. Sagicor will make you feel secure, reaching out for more, will always see you through. Reach for more, whatever you're dreaming, whatever your goals, will help you achieve them. You're never alone. Taking care of today's needs, take care of tomorrow's dreams. Every day helping you succeed, that's what Sagicor needs. Today's needs, tomorrow's dreams. Sagicor.
It's the Home and Things Anniversary Sale. We're kicking off celebrations with big discounts on all your favorite items. Enjoy store-wide savings with huge discounts on tiles, bathroom fixtures, faucets, vanities, shower enclosures, lighting, home decor, and more. We're celebrating quality and style as we say thank you, Jamaica, for 25 years of love and support. The Home and Things Anniversary Sale, Old Hope Road and Constant Spring Road. Let's celebrate because Jamaica builds with Home and Things.
Oh, every time I pay the rent, it feel like the money could have been better spent. I want something from my own. I want to turn the key and I'm a one at home. They make it so convenient when you contact the NHE. No matter your home ownership, boy, you can get a loan easily. If owning a home is what you want to do, NHD is here for delivering more. Delivering more.
Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Love 101, you're invited to listen to Good Morning Minister, a weekly feature where government ministers will speak about the development in their various ministries. Listen for the updates and have your questions and concerns ready to share inside Good Morning Minister as the Minister of Information, Robert Nesta Morgan, and a guest minister or agency head discuss the issues and take your questions and suggestions. Get ready to call in during Good Morning Minister, 11 a.m. on Wednesdays, right here on Love 101, the family station.
Follow Grace Sardine, better flavor. Grace Sardine with the chef and the beginner. Follow the one with pepper, that are the winner. Shop on supermarkets, everybody sell it. You all of them nice. Pass the park, make push it.
Grace Sardines, follow the better flavor. Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with Attorney at Law Stokely Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint. Every Wednesday, the Morning Watch is brought to you by Chris and Charles. When you think loans, think Chris and Charles. Every first and third Wednesday, the Morning Watch is brought to you by Home and Things. Home and Things, your construction finishes superstore. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station, Love 101.
Summertime, a time for choose, time for party, time for cut loose. Children play every day, run road trip and not get down here. Choose. When you feel it deep, chill with the friends and the vibes we choose. Feeling up, try chill with the whole family and kick back on the bill. Summertime, a time for choose, time for party, time for cut loose. Choose goodness wherever, whenever. Choose.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the first watch, we're asking the question, why a sexual harassment act In the second watch, we'll be looking at it in more details in terms of the practical aspects. And in so doing, we have online Ms. Sharon Robinson, Principal Director of Gender Affairs, who has been ably giving us the history, the background behind this act, what it really is, how it came into existence, and the process. She has mentioned consultations with stakeholders, formation of a concept paper, and the sensitizing. Please continue your train of thought, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to plug here that all of this that was happening was informed certainly by our national policy for gender equality. And that to us is the reason they trade for gender mainstreaming, which is our large focus. The national policy for gender equality was designed to ensure that we fold in all matters relating to gender so that there is a gender differentiated approach, because development is not experienced in the same way by everyone. It's not homogeneous. And so you must have the differentiation taking place. So the NPGE, which we like to call it for short, it was designed to set up that framework for a coordination to happen so that every workspace, every person, whether you are in a workspace or you are in a private sector group, whatever it is that you're doing, that you are able to benefit from equal treatment through equal visibility, through equality of opportunity, access to resources on a basis of equality, and equal participation in whatever it is that is happening. And all of that might sound utopian, but we don't believe it is. We think that if we do it in definitive sort of like steps, and we are doing it in partnership and collaboration with a number of key stakeholders, we have seen results, and that's why we don't consider it utopian. So the other thing that influenced this particular development was the fact that we had a responsibility to look at all forms of violence, discrimination, and abuse that was taking place against persons, whether in the workspace or not. And so we knew we had to develop something that would allow us to do that. So another part of that gender picture, which we now call a gender architecture, was a national strategic action plan to eliminate gender-based violence. And so we call that NSAP GBV for short. That allowed us to look broadly at violence in general across Jamaica and what was happening in the other spaces across the region, because Jamaica is not by itself standing alone. We are a part of this huge global village. And so everything that happens in the region and on the global arena affects us. So we had to look also at comparative plans and comparative policies to make sure that we were matching up with what was happening on the international. Because the fact that we were a signatory to these international treaties, conventions, and agreements, it forces us to make sure that we are matching up with what is required. And of course, we would want to make sure that we are giving our people the best treatment, making sure that there is no discrimination and no one feels left behind.
In a nutshell, what are the main tenets of the Act? And are there penalties?
Oh, absolutely. Can I just start with the definition? Because I think that's very important for persons to know. So the definition is broad enough, because we want persons to know that we are not trying to sweep anything under a carpet. It's gender neutral to begin with, meaning you can complain about harassment, whether you are male or female, whether it's a male done to a male, a female done to a male, or a male done to a female. So sexual harassment defined in the Act means the making of any unwelcome sexual advance towards a person by another person, which is A, regarded as offensive or humiliating by the person towards whom the sexual advance is made, or has the effect of 1, interfering with the work performance of the person whom the sexual advance is made, or creating an intimidating, offensive, or hostile work environment. So having defined the sexual harassment, we looked at workers. Who would we consider as a worker? And that is very broad because it covers persons who are in any capacity for an employer, including work as A, an employee, whether in the private or public sector, B, a domestic worker, very important, C, a person engaged under a contract for services, or a subcontractor of that person, D, an employee of a person or subcontractor, referred to, as we continue in paragraph C, that I mentioned, engaged under a contract, and E, a person whose service is procured or arranged by a company which is in the business of supplying workers, or other businesses who has been assigned to work in the business or undertaking. So that covers an apprentice, a trainee, or an intern, a student gaining work experience, a volunteer, and finally, a person or a class prescribed by the minister for the purposes of this definition after consultation with the minister with responsibility for labor. So this is broad enough to capture the gamut of who it is that we would want to consider a worker.
Just stick up in there. Does that include those who are commuting in public transportation?
It does not include commuting on public transportation because that is outside of the broad scope of the workplace. At this time, it does not include. It includes the areas that I mentioned earlier. That's the workspaces.
I argue that a lot of that takes place in that arena. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Absolutely. A lot of persons discussed that. We had extensive discussions at the Joint Select Committee, and we had persons who wanted to have the legislation broad enough to capture what happened outside, but we were not able to have the public, like they say, on the street. This legislation, this first iteration of it, would not capture. The idea is that we want to have the review swiftly. So normally it's 4 to 5 years for a review of legislation or policy. What we agreed on at the Joint Select is that we would speed up the review process to at least 3 years, so that we could have whilst we're doing the sensitization and sending messages around and getting everybody acquainted with this legislation, we can consider having a quick or swift review so we can fold in those other parts that were not captured in this first iteration.
Okay, we have roughly 3 minutes. The process that is mentioned about tribunal and also the penalties.
Okay, so the tribunal is that body that is set up to be the chief arbitrator, meaning that's where you take your cases. The tribunal is set up so that there is a body that allows a person to complain. You can either go directly to the tribunal if you do not have an HR, or you have exhausted all the remedies internally, or your HR is non-compliant. So the composition is set up in such a way that we have a heavy legal component. So 4 members shall be attorneys at law who have practiced for at least 10 years. Another 4 members shall be trained and certified mediators who have practiced for at least 2 years. And then the other 8 would be you throw yourself into a group of persons to pick from. So you have persons in gender affairs, persons who are versed in labor matters and worker representation, persons who are versed in mental health, employer representation, labor relations, and of course the landlord-tenant situation, because that also captures it. The norm is that once the harassment takes place, if it happens in the workplace, the person who is the person towards who the act was done should ideally complain to the HR or their supervisor for the staff. The person who complains should understand that the HR has that responsibility to announce it or to let it be known to the person who carried out that act of harassment, so that in 2 days, at least 2 days, they should know. There is a 14-day period after that allows for the discussion and the investigation to take place. And so the HR is responsible to do all of that within 14 days. If the HR body does not do all of that within 14 days and the matter is unresolved, they have done everything possible, exhausted all the local remedies, if they have grievance passages and all of that, and the person is still not comfortable and satisfied that the redress has taken place, the person can either send the report to the Bureau of Gender Affairs, where we have a unit that was specially set up for this purpose. It is a sexual harassment investigation unit with 4 persons in that staff.
And you can go straight to the tribunal, right? You don't have to go through that.
Yes, you can go straight to the tribunal. You can go straight to the tribunal if you don't wish to go through. But the ideal is that we ask for persons, once you're in a space that allows for you to have an HR, to do that first. And once you've exhausted, then you can go. If you're outside, you don't have HR, you're an external person, or you have a small, you can do directly, or to the Bureau of Gender Affairs.
Very quickly, we only have seconds. The penalties?
The penalties, depending on the gravity of the offense. So the penalties range from 500,000, 900,000, a million, or imprisonment, depending on how it is that what happens when it does settle in terms of what the previous complaint is And when the tribunal adjudicates on that matter, how it is that the evidence brought forward allows them to make a ruling.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Thank you so very much, Ms. Robinson, for taking us through the history formation of this document. And we hope that things will go as smoothly as possible. We're not going to have some hiccups. But thank you so very much for letting us know what it's about. Have a productive day.
Thank you so much. The very same to you.
Great. Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
JN Small Business Loans. Tell us your business and let's turn your ambitions into reality. The time by JN Bank Small Business Loans is
7:30.
It's a tapa summer with flow, with tapa winnings at the let's go. Activate a 5-day plan and more. Rush cash, tapa winnings are flow.
Win over $300,000 weekly when you switch to Flow or activate a 5-day or higher plan. Tap to jump over the hurdles and win prizes instantly. Or win tablets, smartphones, supermarket vouchers, and more. Everybody wins every time.
Flow tapa summer, winnings them tapa. The prize don't stop.
Dial *129*6 number sign or download the Top Up Flow app to activate. Conditions apply.
Juicy and a real party pro. Everybody love. Careful, don't burn up your mouth. Juicy have the best patties. One bag of flavor, them fling panny. Love it, freshly baked, the flaky crust. Make me full, me good, the gas a bus. Shrimp or veggie patty. Whoa, juicy have the flavor you love. Chicken or plant-based patty. Whoa, juicy and a real party pro.
Juicy have the party, them Jamaica love. Get it today, island-wide.
The #1 paint for over 70 years, Berger has created a line of products that cannot be outperformed. Scientifically formulated for both interior and exterior surfaces, Berger paints are quick-drying, safer for you and the environment, and specifically designed to withstand our harsh tropical weather conditions. Now with over 2,000 colors and the ability to mix any custom color you want, Berger paints are simply unmatched. Choose Berger for lasting beauty and protection.
Make an impact on your career. Earn real money. Get 3 to 4 local and international certification in practical nursing and early childhood education with free CXC or CAPE subjects in 6 to 12 months at Distinction College, located at 26 Hagley Park Road, Kingston, 6 Nugent Street, Spanish Town, and Ocho Rios. Earn global certificates in 3 months in geriatric nursing, phlebotomy, childcare. We have the lowest school fees around. Classes begin very soon. Call us 356-4167.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on JN Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. JN Bank will help you find a way.
When you retire, you're still going to get up.
Rise and shine.
You're still going to get out, ready for the road, because you're retiring from work, not your lifestyle. With a Sagicor Lifestyle Approved Retirement Scheme, individuals can save up to 20% of their income towards retirement tax-free. So when you've reached retirement, you'll have more than a rocking chair waiting for you.
I'm ready for my day at the spa.
Start saving for your golden years with a Sagicor Lifestyle Approved Retirement Scheme. Apply online at elife.sagicor.com.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, fleeing Haitians land in Portland. Also in the Gleaner, we don't want it to erupt. Church community and the police are pushing back against eroding peace in Grandspen. Also, we see in the Observer now, keep kids inside as much as possible. Precaution issued as Sahara dust poses threat to people with respiratory underlying illnesses. And then in Loop News Jamaica, case against men refoiled bar robbery in St. Bess heads to Circuit Court. Those are some of the main stories in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What are your thoughts on the new Sexual Harassment Act? Again, what are your thoughts on the new Sexual Harassment Act? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Let's get up and go. Time to explore.
We've done not one, not two, but 3 stops so far on our I Love Summer tour. And Savannah Lamar, you're next. Meet us at Beckford Plaza this Saturday, July 15 from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Join us for the fun, games, and giveaways. And the good music with our resident DJ, DJ Rebirth. Come chat with our announcers, DJ Parchment and Kimmy Levy. ILS, can't miss it this weekend. Savannah Lamar, see you there.
The Antichrist is known as the one who denies the Father and the Son. What is their mission? Steve and guests, Reverend Prophet Mark Stewart and Bishop Robert Ellis. That's The Rock right here on the Family Station, Love 101.
Get ready for another inspiring show this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive 1 to 5, July 11, packed with inspirational stories and island-flavored music. 1:45, we bring you the very interesting Meant to Size Listeners Pick Edition. Stick around the prayer blast at 2 o'clock as we ring in the prayer bells of heaven. 2:15 Inside the Evidence, we share with you another powerhouse testimony boasting about the power of God. Then at 3 p.m., we go behind the pulpit for another anointed minister's story. All this and more will come alive 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. July 11th with yours truly, Sarah Amber, your P1, on the Family Station, Love 101, celebrating 30 years of music, family, and love.
Get ready for a melodic morning inside Love in the Morning with your host, Jakal Dyer. This Thursday, July 13. Listen throughout the show for tips on how to become the best version of who you are. In the feature, Becoming You. Grab your cup of coffee and start the day right with Morning Coffee Pick Me Up devotional at 6 a.m. Then, at 7 a.m., we bring you the Morning Watch with intriguing and thought-provoking discussions. 8:40 a.m., we take it up a notch inside How Would You React? With scenarios and situations that would make you stop and wonder, what would I do? 9:30 a.m. is Voice of Power, brought to you by the Power Faith Ministries. Stick and stay with us this Take Me Back Thursday inside Love in the Morning, 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. on the Family Station. Love 101.
It's alright, just wake up.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. As we segue into the second watch, now that the Sexual Harassment Act is here, and we understand the background and purpose, how will it work in reality? Well, to discuss this, we have joining us Mr. Emil Leiber, attorney at law specializing in labor law, and Mrs. Gina Tomlinson Williams, member and former board chairman of the Caribbean Society of HR Professionals and the director of organizational development and change. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. Good to have you with us this morning. Well, I'm not sure if you heard our first watch discussion with Miss Robinson. It was laying the foundation in terms of helping us understand how this act came into being and what it is really. From your perspective, lady and the gentleman, what are your opening thoughts and concerns? Beginning with you, Mr. Leiber.
Well, opening thoughts is that the sexual harassment legislation is long overdue in terms of putting Jamaica on par with many other jurisdictions, where at least you can have a policy and a structure in place to address complaints of this nature, without hopefully getting as far as termination, etc. Sexual harassment is one of those very nuanced areas, in my view, where you do need to protect the alleged victim, but you also need to protect the alleged perpetrator, because we are all innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Tomlinson Williams, your opening salvo.
Thank you for that. I would have to agree that it is long overdue. While there are some organizations who have been proactive, such as JPS, to already have certain policies in place to prevent sexual harassment, I think it's very important to put it into a legal framework, which allows the internal policies to have more teeth. It also allows individuals who are suffering from harassment over the long term, because it is something that can happen over an extended period of time, to feel that there is some level of recourse, legal recourse, and that they're supported in the concerns that they have. It's important for persons to feel that they have a voice. Also, it's important for persons, in the term that was used before, perpetrators, to know that it's not okay and that there are legal ramifications for their actions.
Yeah. No, Mr. Leiber, as we drill down, the very definition of sexual harassment. We heard it as it is stated in the Act in the first watch. Are there any concerns on from your perspective?
Well, the definition by its very nature is very broad, and I think, if I might say so, the devil will be in the details. And, you know, there's a great deal of subjectivity when it comes to definitions of sexual advances, and the concept of it being regarded as offensive or humiliating by the person towards whom the advance is made. Because what you will, or what I have seen, you know, is that you have varying degrees of sensitivity based on upbringing, based on culture, based on past trauma sometimes.
Yes.
The person may be more sensitive than most people would consider the norm to any type of statement that could be interpreted in that way. Bearing in mind our Jamaican societal context, where we tend to have a very loose method of communication, and many things can be interpreted differently. One of the concepts that, you know, I think I was grappled with is, you know, when a woman complains that he's undressing me with his eyes.
Right.
You know, how do you prove that in the context of a hearing?
And vice versa.
And vice versa.
Yeah. But things like even a look, lips, you know, your tongue, I don't know. Is it also movement of the feet? Is that included as some of the examples?
Well, it says physical, gestural, verbal, non-verbal, or visual conduct. So that's very, very broad.
Yeah.
So any movement of the body, any gesture, any statement,
that is interpreted,
any non-verbal cue.
Correct. And that is the key thing, how it is received by the individual.
Yes. Go ahead, Mrs. Tomlinson Williams. Go ahead.
I was agreeing with the point of interpretation. It is how it is received by the individual, because one of the things that we will be communicating internally as well around the sexual anti-sexual harassment is that it is how it is received by the individual. It depends on the culture that they're coming from. As was pointed out earlier, it depends on the person's background. Two persons may receive the same gesture in a different way, but it is how it is received by the individual. And what we are trying to encourage is a conversation before we go to the point of reporting. And that conversation is mainly around, I feel uncomfortable when you say
Okay.
or do that.
I'm so sorry, Mrs. Tomlinson. We're open a break. Hold that thought. We'll be right
Sure.
back.
Sure.
Sardine for the chef and the beginner. Follow the one with pepper, that are the winner. Shop on supermarkets, everybody
Great
selling.
sardines, follow the better flavor.
The time is 7:45.
Summer your way with Scotiabank. Apply for a Scotia Plan loan this summer and open the doors to your dream destination. The perfect home renovation or a prep for back to school and so much more. Enjoy competitive rates, flexible loan terms, and no payments for up to 2 months. Use your plan loan to unlock your perfect summer break. Apply for your Scotia Plan loan today and have summer your way with Scotiabank. Visit jm.scotiabank.com or call 888-472-6842 for further details.
Need a qualified counseling psychologist to help you navigate life and challenges? Call Andre Allen Casey with over 10 years of experience in resolving relational issues, therapeutic interventions for couples, families, and individuals. Andre Allen Casey, licensed associate counseling psychologist with offices at 20 West Kings House Road, Kingston 10. Open Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Telephone or WhatsApp 876-360-6594 or email AndreAllen_Casey at yahoo.com. Andre Allen Casey, counseling with a difference.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa McKenzie, Chief Medical Officer. All healthcare workers have remained committed and passionate about the service they give to Jamaicans. And we want to say a special thank you to all our healthcare heroes as we celebrate Healthcare Workers Appreciation Month. You have blazed a trail of excellent service, and this is your time to relax and reflect, even as we continue to provide service for the population. Thank you for your commitment, service, and sacrifice. Happy Healthcare Workers Appreciation Month.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
We say welcome home. Caribbean Airlines, back on the road again, back on the road again. It's time to fly and get away. Where we have no problems, it's just we friends and good vibes there. We restore reset all the energy, ready to reconnect with the family. And we give commitment to we people there, to we people there. We say welcome, tell me we say. We got to be young, 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 everything to be young, we got to be young, we got to be young. Summertime, a time to choose, time to party, time to cut loose. Children play every day, run road trip and not get down here. Choose. When you feel it deep, chill with the friends and the vibes feel good. Choose. Feeling that chill with the whole family and kick back on the bill. Summertime, a time to choose, time to party, time to cut loose. Choose this forever, whenever. Choose.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this is the second watch. We continue to look on the Sexual Harassment Act. This time around, we are focusing on the Act in practice. And in so doing, we have online Mrs. Gina Tomlinson-Williams, member of the former board chairman of the Caribbean Society of HR Professionals and Director of Organizational Development and Change, as well as Mr. Emil Leiber, attorney at law, specializing in labor law. Before the break, I believe, Mrs. Tomlinson-Williams, you're giving us your thoughts in regards to the definition of sexual harassment and the outworkings thereby.
Yes. So I think it's important, one, for us to recognize that it is the perception of the recipient is what's an important part of it. And what I think the act is helping to achieve is to adjust our language, and adjust how we interact with each other. Our culture in Jamaica is one that can be very intimate without it being intended, without any necessary harm being intended, but how it is received can be harmful. We were talking previously about a person's background, etc. If somebody is coming from a situation where they have been hurt or abused in the past, then they may receive certain advances differently. But we're not going to limit it to that situation. Any person, male or female, can be sexually harassed. It doesn't matter the gender. And sexual harassment comes in many different forms. We think about how people look at you, how they might touch you, but it can also come in the form of bullying. It can also come in the form of threats. So there are several different ways that sexual harassment can take place. There's also the situation where someone in a position of authority may try to coerce the person who reports to them or a person who is lower in the organization to do certain sexual acts, or respond in a certain way to them that they expect in return for favors. And so it can show up in several different ways.
Yeah. Some interesting points you both have been raising. Mr. Leiber, the concerns read the possibility of false claims and defamation based perhaps on malicious intent and etc. etc. What are your thoughts on that and your concerns?
Well, the act does contemplate that there is an investigation. But if a complaint is made to the tribunal, it is first investigated and determination made on a preliminary basis by virtue of a report as to whether or not there is any merit in the complaint, because not every complaint will have merit or perhaps sufficient merit to go forward in terms of a hearing before the tribunal. So the concept also under the Act is that complaints are kept confidential. So one of the most damaging things for the alleged perpetrator is publication that a complaint has been made of sexual harassment. Sometimes it almost doesn't matter how the complaint is resolved. It is, it remains in the collective psyche of people, the institution, the company, or whatever environment in which it is made, sometimes at a national level, that the person is an alleged. And we always forget that word, alleged.
The damage will be done permanently.
Yes.
It will be done permanently. And so that's why confidentiality and what has been said earlier about having a conversation before a formal complaint is made is so critical, because many times, based on the structure of the legislation, you can, male or female, be guilty of harassment even without intending it, because it's how it's received. But in a situation where you never intended for it to be received that way, I think a conversation would certainly be the best way to resolve that. However, it needs to be a conversation in a particular manner and context, meaning ideally it should be along with somebody who's trained to address matters like that, and not just two people thrown into a room to talk about, what may be considered harassing behavior by one, because certainly, that can result in defensive responses and perhaps a non-productive communication. So it's important that that conversation takes place in a particular context.
Yeah, but by the way, are there penalties for false claims and so on?
Yes. Yes, there are.
Okay. You want to take it up, Mrs.
No.
Thomas?
I'll allow the lawyer to speak.
Okay. So if you want to take it up, Mr. Leiber, is there anything specific?
Well, I think my reading of the Act, that refresh myself on it, said that they can dismiss it if they find that it is without merit. In terms of a false claim before the tribunal, you can commit an offense.
But no penalties?
Right, no, you can have a
now.
fine not exceeding $1 million, right? But Section 41. So if you knowingly make a false sexual harassment claim or a false complaint, commits an offense, right? So it's $1 million, term of imprisonment not exceeding 3 months. But that has to be borne in mind that that's on conviction in a parish court. So that means that complaints would have to be made. You would have to be charged under Section 41. It would have to be taken to court, and a judge after a trial would have to make this determination. So it's not automatic. And given our justice system, it could take some time for it to be determined. But hopefully, a provision like this is a deterrent, and you don't really have to actually do too many cases like that.
Yeah. Mrs. Tomlinson Williams, and I'm asking you this one and not Mr. Libas yet, because there are those who argue that in the real world of job insecurity, and high-profile lawyers, very few claims will be made. Your response to that, Mrs. Tomlinson Williams?
So one of the things that I appreciate about the act is that there are layers of the action that needs to be taken before it even gets outside of the organization and into the court system. The organization is required to set up an environment that allows for confidential reporting of these issues and confidential resolution of the issues before it even gets to the public and even to the court system. So one of the things I appreciate is that in setting up such an internal system, once you allow for that confidentiality, in my opinion, it allows for the confidence of the individual. And once again, regardless of gender, it allows for the confidence of the individual to be able to express in a safe environment. This is what
that doesn't mean, Mrs. Thomas Williams. Who's going to risk losing their job? I mean, it's the boss who is the problem.
The act speaks to that.
He's the one who was harassing
an individual.
The employee.
Yeah, but we cannot discriminate against an individual who chooses to express this claim, to make this claim. We cannot discriminate against them. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, we cannot discriminate against someone who makes a claim. What is important is the confidential resolution of the issue internally so that both parties can feel okay. It may be a situation where the person, whether the person who is being accused or the person who is making the claim, is moved to another area of the organization. It's not that you're going to lose your job. That's not a natural outcome and should not be a natural outcome of making a claim of sexual harassment. It should not be at all.
Yeah. Well, we have a little less than 2 minutes. Looking forward and going forward, first with you, Mr. Leiber. In reality, where do you think this is going? Will it work? Will it make much of an impact on our society? What needs to be done even more? Mr. Leiber?
I think if you have a very strong basis for complaint, I don't think the minor concerns are going to get very far, particularly where the complainant remains employed. Because it is a reality that nobody wants to endanger their job once they still have it. But I think, and I certainly hope, that the very egregious cases, some of it bordering on sexual assault, which is a criminal offense separate from harassment, will be dealt with and will be treated in accordance with the...
Hear loud and clear. A couple seconds, Mrs. Tomlinson Williams.
I'll just share very quickly. I've worked at least 6 different organizations, and I can tell you that I have personally experienced sexual harassment, and I know several women who I work with who have experienced it as well. And I've not felt confident in the past to be able to share my experience or to speak to someone in authority about it because of the fact that I didn't think it would go anywhere. But I think that this act will allow for an avenue for persons like me to be able to express their concern and feel safe in doing so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we end on that note, a positive note. And thank you so very much for joining us. Have a productive day and a safe day.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Same to you. All the best.
Great. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we continue to set the stage for discussion of topical and controversial issues. For information, get copies of this program. Call our production department at 876-968-959627. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. I'm Dylan Toussaint. Hand you back love in the morning with Jokal Daya.